welcome to Berkshire Guitar Amplifier Repairs in Reading, England. Stuart Smith as always in the workshop, and a bit of an unusual amp today. It's a VVT combo, the Lindy Fralin model. Well, as I'm sure you know, I'm an expert in this. I'm an expert in looking at Google, and according to Google, Lindy Fralin, who he is a famous US boutique guitar pickup manufacturer, but you all knew that. The problem with this amp is that it makes a hideous loud hum when you turn it on, a sort of loud mains buzz sound, and that immediately kind of alerts me it might be a power supply problem. It failed at a gig, so this is a very long-standing customer of mine. I've repaired very many of his amplifiers over the years, so I'm going to try and turn it around for him as quickly as possible so that he can get gigging again. And I'm not going to bother turning it on again. I'm just going to take the chassis straight out and we'll get cracking on this one. Hopefully it won't detain us too long. Well, here we are inside the amp. It's a fairly simple one, as you can see. Not a huge amount going on. Printed circuit board, but very nicely made and looks to be quite good quality. The soldering is extremely good on this. And here are the valves, obviously. 4 preamp valves and 2, in this case, 5881. So I think this can take 6v6s as well. And then a 5U4 GB rectifier tube. So all in all, not a particularly complicated amplifier. I've got it all hooked up and I'm about to switch it on, and we can have a listen to this this noise. So I think let's do that now. Okay, here we go. Turn on. It's in standby at the moment, and I've got it hooked up to my workshop Marshall 4x12, and take it out of standby. Whoa! Horrible! I'll just strum the guitar to see if it's working at all. Yep, it's working, but with a horrible mains hum on it. So let's kill that. So my guess on this is it's power supply related. I've had a quick look at these smoothing caps and they all look to be okay. In other words, there's no horrible leakage coming out of them or anything like that. I guess it's possible one of them's faulty. And I think the very first thing I'm going to do is just change the rectifier valve. I doubt it will be that, but if that was only working half of it was working or something, that would give those symptoms. And it's a 10-second job, so we'll do that first. And then I think, well, it's got to be the smoothing caps next. So let's push on and see if we can diagnose what's wrong with the amp. Right, well, because it's quick and easy, I'm just going to change the rectifier valve for a new one. I don't really think it'll be this. It's quite unusual for rectifier valves to go down. But anyway, we can easily pop another one in. There we go. And we'll turn it on. Okay, yeah, that's on. Take it out of standby. 3, 2, 1. Ooh, that made things better. I don't think so. No improvement there. So to my mind, that is a horrible hum on the HT. So I think what I will do now is let's get a scope on the HT cap there and just have a look to see what the HT is doing. Actually, I think before I do that, we should really check the DC on the HT. So let's do that as well. Right. Okay, I've got the meter clipped across the first of these capacitors here. These two here are in series with each other to get the voltage up. So we won't expect to see a huge HT across here, maybe a couple of hundred volts or 175 or 160 or something similar. Right, there's the hum. And we've got 170 volts across that capacitor. Let's check the other one. Okay, turn it on. That's interesting. That's coming up a bit. That's coming up, yeah. 130, 100. So we've got, if you add those two together, we've got 350 volts HT or something, so that's okay. Right, well, I think the next thing to do, I'll show you what I normally do in these circumstances. Let's turn that off. Disconnect this. Right, there are two things I would normally do here. I want to take another capacitor, let me see, for example, this 450 volts 100 microfarad capacitor, and with a suspect capacitor I would just normally dab the capacitor across it and see if that solves the problem. So there are two ways of doing that. You obviously don't hold the capacitor and stick it in. What you can do is take a couple of crop clips. And I'm assuming, of course, that you know what you're doing. None of these videos are aimed at people who have no knowledge whatsoever of electronics in terms of them actually doing something. And we can connect a capacitor across like this, look. Negative to negative, positive to positive. And it's perfectly safe to hold that like that. Obviously you wouldn't want to go on touching these. They've got 150 volts on them. So now if we turn on and, well, let's see what happens. So turn on. If that capacitor is faulty, putting this one across it will cure the hum. And it's quite a good technique. You can just go along the capacitors and find the faulty one. Often you can see stuff leaking out of them, but these look good to me. Anyway, let's take that standby. Oh! Whoa, 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 whoa! Oh, well, that's interesting. I think we've found the very first capacitor we've tried. It's just yep, the very first capacitor we've tried is faulty. Let's just see what happens if we unclip this. Horrible noise. Clip this back on. Cured. Oh well, it doesn't get easier than that. I think I might have to go along all of them and find the faulty one, but it's the very first one we came to. So we'll turn this off. We make sure we work safely here by unclipping the negative and discharging this capacitor, which didn't have much charge on it anyway. Now we're safe to disconnect this without touching it, and disconnect this without touching it, and we're good to go. I actually also have a tool I can stick across which has a capacitor inside it. So, right, let me show you what's what then here, and have a quick look. How hard is it to fix? I think the board will come out fairly easily, which is not brilliant. I might do a top side fix on this actually to make life a bit easier. Right, so this is the faulty capacitor, this one here. That's the one we put the capacitor across, and that cured the problem immediately. I've just had another look. There's no sign whatsoever of that being faulty. So the setup here is you've got two in series with each other, which gives you half of the capacitance but twice the voltage. That's a good trick, often used. And I can see down here there are two resistors. There'll be a resistor there and a resistor there. which is used to balance the two capacitors. So that one's faulty. I will be replacing both of these, because there's no point in replacing that and not that one. And we'll take a view on these, see if the customer wants to have those replaced. But they're probably okay, those. You know, they're 500 volt caps, look, and they've only got a couple of hundred volts on them, so they'll be okay. And I think we've just got very unlucky with just a faulty capacitor. These would normally be expected to last 30 years or 40 years or something. I can't see the voltage rating on them because they're the wrong way up, but as soon as we get one out we'll be able to see. But I would imagine they're rated, you know, well above the 175 volts that we saw across there. So we've just got a bit unlucky and had a capacitor fail. This one's probably perfectly right and will probably go on for a long time as well. But I'm going to replace both of those, and then that will be a fix. The reason I say that I do a top side repair is, you know, you've got this situation here where you have all of these connections, all these yellow ones here. That's okay, because if you get the board up and turn it that way, you can get to the underside. But of course, typically what they do, as indeed they have here, look, is have wires on this side too, which makes life a little bit more difficult. And this has to come out. Yeah, it's not easy to take the board out, and I'm always very comfortable with a top side repair. I know maybe some people watching this don't like it, but I promise you, if I do a top side repair here, it'll last 50 years. There won't be anything wrong with it. So, and I have to be mindful of the customer's budget. It's always money, 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 really. I had someone email me the other day saying you shouldn't put deoxit on pots. You should be removing each pot, disassembling it, wiping it around with a cotton bud, putting special fader lube on it, and then just a little drop of deoxit and reassembling the pot and putting it back in. I thought, this person must be on drugs. You are flipping kidding me, in terms of the amount of money that would add to the average repair. And anyway, you'd never do that anyway. The pots are $1 each. You know, if you were going to replace a pot, on any very unlikely occasion you had to, you would just replace the pot. So it's funny the things that people say to me on the channel. Very weird. But anyway, there you go. So anyway, that digression was to say that I'm always doing a repair to a budget. Anything is possible with money, no object. If you spend 20, 30, 40, 50 hours on an amplifier and run up a £1,500 bill or whatever it is, anything is possible. But the customer has a certain amount that they want to pay for a repair, and that's usually not a huge amount of money. In my case, it's of the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 maximum kind of level, very rarely over 100. They don't want to be spending huge amounts on the repair, so I always try to keep the cost down as much as possible, and that means spending as little time as possible, because obviously time is money. Okay, so let's move ahead with a top side repair on here. I'll show you how I do that, and then that will be a fix on this amp. I just remembered I promised to show you the waveform on that, so I've got the scope clipped across that capacitor, and then over on the scope here you can see a very nasty waveform, 50 Hertz as you might expect, and this is on a times 10 probe, so we've got 50, 100, 150, 200, 200, we've got 300 volts of mains hum on there. That capacitor's not working at all, so no wonder that's making a horrible noise. So before I do the repair, I'm just going to check there's no voltage on these caps, and there's 5 volts on that, 1 volt on that, 5 on that, so there's no nasty voltages around. I've got it unplugged from the mains. Just double check that, let's make sure you've unplugged the right plug. And now we can change this capacitor. So the simple way of doing this is just to literally cut the thing out, which I'm going to do close to the capacitor body to allow me enough lead to connect the new one onto, like that. And there we go. That's what have we got here? Ah, that's interesting. That's interesting. It's 100 microfarads at 350 volts. So that's, you know, it only had 200 volts on it. Yeah, but one of the problems with this series arrangement, where you put two capacitors in series, even if you have a balancing resistors, which, by the way, here they are. Here, these two are the balancing resistors, is you can get uneven voltages on the capacitors until one charges up. So if one charges up a lot more quickly than the other, it can leave a lot of voltage across the second capacitor whilst that one charges up, and it can get sort of a temporary over voltage on the capacitor. So I'm going to have to see now if I've got any 100 microfarads 350 volts, and see if I can replace that. I'll leave that one in there. Oh, I don't need to leave that one in there. It's marked very clearly positive there, and that's been marked positive there. So I don't really want to leave both of these caps in. I'm going to take them both out. There we go. And very clearly labelled positive, looks, so we can't go wrong. And the object here is we've got a very nice strong stalk here around which I'm going to wrap the wire of the new capacitor and solder it, and that will be perfectly good enough. Right, let's see what I've got in the way of capacitors. I'm not sure I've got any 100 microfarad 350 volt. By the way, both of these look perfectly alright. Look, there's no sign of any gunk coming out. There never is on this side, on the negative side, but on the positive side, nothing. Looks perfectly alright. It's just failed internally. Well, as luck would have it, I've got 4, but I only need 2 F and T 100 microfarad 350 volt caps. These are very good caps, and so we can just pop those in, which is good. So the objective is to put that in there like that, and we're going to wrap this lead around here like so. I like to always put the ident of the caps up right so that you can see what they are. forming a kind of D hook on each end. It takes a little bit of manual dexterity. There we go, so that's perfectly okay on that side. Awkward to get in there. Be careful snipping off bits of wire like this, because they go flying off into the middle of the amp. It's always best to have them, which that one, exactly what that did, even though I thought I had it gripped. If you do that, always find the piece of wire before you do anything else whatsoever and hoik it out. My careful ministrations. There we go, now we can bend that down like so, and we've got a very nice D hook arrangement there on each end of that cap. Make sure we've got the right way round, positive up, yes, positive down on this one. That's the normal way, up and down. And so these two resistors act to balance the voltage across the two halves of the cap. Sorry, across each of the caps. And now all we need to do is to solder that one. Fine, I don't apply too much heat, just enough to solder it. It's a bit of a knack. You don't really want it unsoldering at the PCB end. There we go. That will be good for the lifetime of the capacitor. No question about that. Right, let's see if the second one goes as smoothly. So positive down this time. We don't need all this lead, we can just trim off some large amount of this. Bend it down. And then out like so, out like so, and hopefully that will be about right. It's a question of getting the distance right. Yeah, that's fine. Now we can get rid of all this surplus lead, don't need all this. It's a little bit awkward. Basically like so. I think I'm just going to solder that one whilst it's there. Positive up, positive down, yep, we're good there. And this one's a little bit awkward because of the lamp holder. There we go. good. Solder that one. There you go. So before we turn it on, we want to make sure we've put the cap in the right way around. Positive up, positive down, that's correct. Otherwise we'll have a very nice loud bang when we turn this on. Right, so we can now plug it back in. Still all connected up, I think. Yeah, still connected up. And let's turn it on. Out of standby. Sounding good. Nice sounding amp. I like the sound of that. And there we go. Now, these have not been put down with hot melt glue or anything. They weren't done originally like that, so I'm going to leave well enough alone. They're nice and stable, down on solid on the board, and in a group of 5 like that. So there's almost no chance at all of these vibrating and you know, having a dry joint problem. So we don't need to worry unduly about that. And that, my friends, is a fix. Hope you enjoyed that one. Well, there you go. As I said at the introduction to this video, it shouldn't detain us too long, and indeed it didn't. If ever you hear a horrible loud buzz like that, it's almost always some kind of power supply related issue. In a diode rectifier, it could be one of the diodes, but more likely the smoothing capacitor. And in a valve amplifier, it could be the valve rectifier, but more likely again one of the HT smoothing caps, which indeed this turned out to be. I asked the customer and he didn't want to replace the other 3. I think that's actually a good decision. They'll be fine. It was just something about that serious setup of those 2 front end HT caps which caused one of them to fail for kind of reasons unknown. My guess, just bad luck, a bad cap. Anyway, we've put a couple of good quality caps in there, and this amp will be good to go for many more years yet. Well, as always, thank you for watching. See you on the next video.